Okay. All right. All right. Matuto po esti live stream. Hunggan. Okay, now yung zone roto. Give me 1 second. I'll just make sure that we are live everywhere. All right. Matuto esti gi Instagram. And all right. Matuto lokwi gi YouTube. Then betsek lokwi. Then gaigi gi Facebook lokwi. Right. Right, half a day todos hamzu gwena hudzung estigin nuevo episode Fanatsu Guawi host Midzu. This is once again an episode of Fanatsu, and I am your host, Inanhusi Michael Luhan Bavakwa. And for this episode of Fanatsu, I am joined. We have a half full Zoom room. Again, it's not as full as a few weeks ago when we had everyone for that Inafamaulik mutual aid episode, but I go bonito adzu. But this episode promises to be full of Gwenaidza, full of Menagov. Siempre guaha megait sinalek lokwe. It's going to be a lot of fun, this one. I do not promise drama. I'm not promising any drama of any sorts. But I'm very excited to have with me members of Guma Gela. And this was an episode that was suggested to me by Dr. Sarina Saturn, and we're going to hear from her first. And some of you might be familiar with Guma Gela, a wonderful artistic, cultural, creative collective with members in the Marianas, members in the diaspora. And so it's wonderful to hear about their work, meet some of their members. And so but first, Dr. Sarina Saturn, who's been doing stuff in terms of organizing higher education for mutual aid work and just, helping inspire more student activism with Pacific Islander students. She's the one that suggested to me that we bring on Guma Gela, and I'm so glad that she did. And so I want to bring her out first to kind of share some thoughts, and then we'll hear from the members of Guma Gela. And so, por favor, Dr. Sarina, si Zeus Masi para ifinatomo para Fanatsu.
Half a day. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Michael Get Bivakwa. As we've been collaborators on a lot of great things related to social justice, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to uplift Guma Gela today as well. I'm from the Dede clan in the Artero Sablan. I go with multi-generational troublemakers. So I've been an activist for decades. And I found this amazing group through near Dr. Tino, whose work I found with a lot of social justice and equity work. I'm a neuroscientist by training, but got really deeply involved in intersectional justice and care, especially for queer and trans communities and BIPOC communities, especially cutie BIPOC. And I just ran across Tino when I was just wondering, is anyone else thinking and talking about these issues in the same way? And then I found Guma Gela, who is kind of a gift to my younger self, a young queer kid, raised in a very colonized mindset, with the Catholic colonization, and it was just so freeing and liberating. They've been such a gift to so many people, with their activism, with their art. And so it's just an honor to amplify their voices and just to highlight all of the amazing work that they're doing. So I'll go ahead and turn it over and have these wonderful humans introduce themselves.
Oh, si Zeus Masi, all right, nihita atenesti. Hadzi Malago commentus finetna. Now, by the rules of Chamorro dynamics, imas amku debido quintus finetna. The oldest must speak first, and so pues I have been told that si sahi hago finetna, por favor.
Again, I'm the mas umkutzu. Guahusi Sahi, the Mankulutzu Giza Chalampagus in Washington, Lo Su Masagadzu Pagu Giza Seattle, Washington. Familian Kadits and Kanzu, Giza Chalampagus and Aganya. And yeah, I'm a parent. I have a 17-year-old named Elijah. I'm an artist, and Guma Gela is such an incredible space where the intersections of like my queerness, being non-binary and trans, and being Chamoru are woven together. And I'm really excited to just share more about the story of how we became, but also the ways in which we want to continue to invite our other Gela to feel like they can be a part of our creative history, and because they already are. So.
Go bonito now. Okay. Sino and Adzeki Otrotato, you can pick who goes next by the laws of
Okay.
Masonko.
Well, the mas omku, I think, is Sitor, my partner.
Por favor, cosino and introducing my sahau, Tor.
Guahusi Tor, Dimunklu Zu Giza Ipan, Lo Samasaga Zu Giza Seattle. I'm familiar in Kohut and Zedzi, and also a few other family. My other family name is also Shimazu and Polino. I grew up mainly in Ipan. I lived on Guahan for most of my life and moved out to Seattle for college and never left. I had wondered a lot. Yeah, I think I had asked a lot of questions, and I think my younger self was really wondering where are the people like me? I definitely came out to Seattle and was like, wow, there are people who have other community, queer community, and didn't see a lot of trans folks like me. And then I found Guma Gela, and I was so happy to um, meet everyone and yeah, get closer to everyone.
Sidus Masi. All right. And so the Sahi Tour box. Hamzu, Sinya, and Adzik Hadzipago. You can pick who goes next. There's only two left. And
I
so
know.
which which flavor of tomorrow chip cookies would you like next?
Okay, the
Pino
next
flavor or Soleil flavor?
are we doing it by goodness or by nenniness? And if we're doing nenniness, that is solely.
Por favor, Soleil.
I think I've been voluntold, which I'm used to, the middle grandchild and the oldest out of my siblings. Half a day. My name is Solely Celestial. I use they, he pronouns. I was born and raised on the island of Guahan, moved out here to Washington when I was 16 years old. So in 2013, my mom's family is from Tamani, grew up in Tamani, and Paganya Heights. My dad, also from Paganya. Not related though. I double checked. My mom's side is Herrero Dunga, and my dad's side is not Malik Celestial. And yeah, pass it to you, my big bro, Tino.
Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. My name is Tino Camacho. I was born and raised on the island of Guahan, in the village of Tumuning. On my grandma's side, I'm a Scambleri Camacho, familiar in Desa. And then on my grandfather's side, also Camacho. Although I don't think we ever figured out if we have a clan name, so I just tell people Familia and Sabino because that's his like OG name that like no one knows about. So I was like, okay, Familia and Sabino. Yeah, I am really grateful that Dr. Sarina invited us here today to talk about Guma Gela and the work we've been doing, in Washington, in Guahan, and abroad. We have, I think, most of our founding members here, between me, Soleil, Sahi, and now Rowdy, who's just joined us as well. We tried to create this space as something to provide love and care for queer and trans Pacifica and Chamorro people, specifically Chamorro people, here in Washington State. Through art, through cultural expression, through dance, through chant, through song, spaces where we can create new traditions and also, call back to traditions from our ancestors, some of whose stories are, hidden or, not told enough, right? And with that, I'm gonna pass it on. So Radi, we were going by Mas Amku status. So I guess you're Mas Amku. So I will hand it off to Radi to introduce themselves next.
Hello, Day. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, go. Hi. Hi. Hello. Nice to see you, Dr. Sarina, Dr. Bavakwa. Thank you for having us here, for having conversations on AANHPI Heritage Month. Kwahosi Rowdy, from the village of Jonya and family in Dogi. And like Tor, I was watching a little earlier on Instagram, and so I moved out to Seattle after college, and then I've been here since. And so it's been a journey to like find home while being away, but knowing that there's such a large Chamorro community here in Washington, one of the third largest PI communities in the country. And so I think knowing there are so many Chamorros here and knowing that like we are very creative people, it was really beautiful to just meet everyone here today. And so, I'm excited to be here. So thank you for having us.
Oh, Biba. Pwede. Atan todo este. All right, Nanga. They moved all of the stuff in where things are in the Zoom dispenses. Estigate. All right, and again. All right, Paul. Hey, sino huli hamzutor? Hey, aten estiman bonitong tauto gwini. Hungan. And so, all right, Tino, esta elect modernity, you said a little bit about sort of Guma Gela. And I think, and I appreciated that. And I think one of the reasons why I really appreciate Ibidan Mizu Itsetso Mizu is because as somebody who has, who has studied Chamorro history, Chamorro culture for a long time, I have encountered people who have said literally that, there is no such thing as gay people in Chamorro culture, or that homosexuality doesn't exist in Chamorro culture, or that these things didn't exist in our culture before. I've heard stuff like that all the time. And so it's not a particularly like well-researched historical argument for sure. A lot of times it's built on religious ideas, it's built on prejudice, it's built on hate, it's built on ignorance, a lot of things like that. And so what I've always found beautiful about Guma Gela and though is sort of the way it bridges sort of art and culture and history, values, all of these things together. And so I would like, for anyone who would like to share sort of that experience, because I have met some Chamorros, for example, queer Chamorros, gay and lesbian Chamorros in the past who felt that they had to leave the culture in order to sort of embrace their identity or be who they were. But what I find beautiful about a group like Guma Gela is sort of this unwillingness to give that up. And so I'm huagradeci hamsu todos because I really would love to just hear, your wisdom on this. Because I'm so glad that there are so many that don't want to give up that fight, And so who would like to share some thoughts on that first? And it doesn't have to be the oldest, but Sahi, Engen Malago Comentus Finet Nasinya. I mean, you went first last round, so the slingstone, Engen esta listu yatsu atapad gikanaimo. If the slingstone's ready in your hands, you may launch the first volley.
All right, you ready? Okay. Okay, listo too. Yeah, we actually had a talk story with Tino the other night, actually talking about the intersections of, colonial history in relation to being queer and like healing as Chamorro queer and trans people. And I think, and I really appreciate you naming, like we will continue to be who we are and shine as bright as we can to give, other folks like permission to be able to feel like they can be themselves. Sorry, my son's in the background. You want to say hi, Elisha? And this is also why.
Day. Half a day, half a day.
And I think also as a parent, speaking of Elijah, I really think inherently in our queerness and our Chamorro-ness, like we have always been the healers and the cultural bearers and the caregivers and like those who have brought so much creativity, so much healing to our communities, and the erasure and the ways in which we've been invisibilized not only hurts, right? Like many of us in our cultures, and hearing you say that people have felt like they had to leave their culture, put it aside. I think for us, we're like, no, that is so important to our identities, but also to our healing, and for the Manyaina to, like be able to give gratitude to the people that came before us, but especially our trans and queer Chamorro relatives. And creativity is a part of that. I think it allows us to like reimagine and imagine as we're remembering, right, a lot of our culture and our history and our ancestry. It also calls us to remember like who authentically we are as queer and trans Chamorro people. And I believe that we can't separate those things because that is who we are and who we're called to be. And we're often the people called to do that intergenerational healing. Um, and sometimes it's not easy. Like a lot of times it's not easy. But I see it in Guma Gela. I see the ways in which we are just so committed to sharing not only our culture, but who we are and how we love and really deepen our values in Afamalik, in Akofli'i, in Akwaita, um, in hopes that that can also invite others to not only model it, but to remember that we're really rooted in those values as Chamorro people and our queer and transness. Even though we're still thinking of names and words and Chamorro and Hadza, right, to call ourselves. And that's like a very Western framework of those words. But I really believe it's like really connected to our philosophies as Chamorro people. So yeah, I'll pause there. But
Sidus Moxie. Tino,
Yeah.
listo, por favor.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting is that like sometimes people don't realize like how steeped in colonialism, thinking about that like only things from the past can explain or can be cultural, right, or can be traditional, without acknowledging even some of the practices that we have today in Chamorro culture that are, practices that were reimagined, right? Thinking about Chamorro dance, right? And thinking of the work of even Frank Rabone and doing some of that work of rethinking and reimagining what Chamorro dance can look like. And thinking about the fact that we have like 6 actual words to describe, right? Queer and trans Chamorro people, and stories behind some of those words, right? And stories even, I mean, I remember it was, I don't know how many years ago it was now, again, but I remember I was like, I saw you at a SIGA and I sat down next to you and we just talked story about like what actually exists, right, in the archives around queer and trans stories. And one of the things you shared was that the first written account, right, talks about 2 siblings where one, they're both men, and in order to sort of like create, the Chamorro people, one of them transformed right into a woman. And I think like, uncovering stories like that in the archives is really important because it gives people something to connect with, right? But at the same time, right, what do we do when we don't have those stories passed down, or if those stories are hidden, or if they're so deeply sort of like, the people don't talk about them, right? And I think that's really the sort of like challenging thing about navigating colonization, is impacts on how we exist as queer and trans Chamorro people. yeah, I will pass it off to my siblings here also to share more about, how we do that resistance work, right? And how we've been doing that resistance work for the last, I would say, almost a decade now, huh? Guma Gela has been around.
Oh, Sejus Masi, that's such a powerful point that you make there. That idea that people have that if it's old, if it's from the past, it's real, and it's that's not all. We shouldn't always assume that how long something has been around. I mean, people. I was asked by attorneys in the public defender system here on Guam recently for a case where they were asking about how do Chamorros treat children? How do they discipline children? And I said, oh, well, if you asked them 100 years ago, they would say that they hit their kids. But or they yell at their kids, or that there's a lot of threats of violence and there's a lot of stuff like that. But if you look at least what the Spanish say when they first arrive, then the Spanish are pretty clear that they don't hit their kids. That they don't that what how they interact with their kids, there's no violence involved. And so which is the Chamorro culture that you want to uphold? And so there's always choices about culture. And so don't feel that just because there's this particular culture, like Catholicism in some cases, that says this is. And so yeah, I think that's an important point. Who would like to share next before I accidentally slip into professor mode and talk for 15 minutes? Stop me, please, please. This is why I have a podcast.
How about I popcorn to someone that way?
Hungam
That way,
enigi
yeah.
malik anon there, sige.
Let me send it over to Rowdy.
Who has who has an amazing virtual background behind him. Although part of it, I see it and I want to say, hey, Aday, Atan, gua carabao, gua carabao. Okay, por favor, Rowdy.
Oh, Santa Masi. I was mouthing Soleil, but I guess Tino didn't like see it. So, but no, yeah, I think this is a really big question that I think we're also trying to answer today. I mean, Tino, you brought us together to have the conversation yesterday, and there's just so many more questions that we have about our existence, right? I think for me, I think I always knew that I was gay. I think my mom said the first time she thought that I might be gay was like when I was a baby child. I would walk around with like a napkin on my head, kind of like the tetas, and I'll just walk around with that on my head. And I was like, I never remember doing that, but I do like wearing things on my head now, like when I do drag. Um, and I've always been very effeminate, I always played with the girls. And they will always use like Gela, like words. So like using these words, oh yeah, see the napkin on the head, it just feels very sacred, right? But then I'm also like, yeah, what's wrong about wanting to emulate the women and the women and the mothers in our families, right? There's such a like demonization of like the feminine, there's this super hyper masculine like kind of feeling that Chamorness needs to be sometimes, right? But then when Dr. Miguel, when you talked about like how we care for children, my thought was like the Allah's Patgun or something, like these jewelries that were just made. If you saved a child, I will gift you something so precious, turtle shells that are like shaped in like this gradation. I'm like, that's amazing to think like my child is worth this and more, right? And then think about, yeah, my childhood, and I think they didn't want to be mad at me for being gay. But I was one of the only like queer people in my family. Um, and then I went to Father Dueñas, and it came more like kind of like more confusing being in an all boys school, being like, okay, cool, this is nice, but never really understanding like these feelings, right? Because we never had conversations. There was nothing like in our families, nothing out in the media, right? You only see caricatures of people, and then those are the things that you feel like you can either be or not, or just hide it, right? But I remember like looking at the Chamorro language, like dictionary, and finding a word called matsum. And Matsum, when I read it, it said to be covered in vines, but also an effeminate man. And I thought that was actually a very interesting way of language. And like, I could see myself just wearing vines. Yeah, like that's totally cool. You know, like we're naked all the time, right? You know, if you look at all the old pictures, I'm like, I want to be a little dudist a little bit. Why do we even have the word dudist, right? Where does that come from? You know, like just people wanting to express themselves, right? And just be a little more fanciful, right? And I think when I think about my queerness, and Sahi mentioned that yesterday too, like I think being queer saved me, like saved my life, gave me a different perspective, different from like like my male cousins or my from the male kind of like people in my life. Like their direction was very different from what I wanted. I didn't want that. I didn't like the violence or the aggression. There was this like patriarchy that I didn't know it was patriarchy, but it was patriarchy. You know, like kind of leading like all of this. And like this was very unfair, and I don't agree with that. And I think if I was more male centered, I would have agreed with that because I would have been privileged to that, right? But because I wasn't, I was like, I don't like that. I like being with my aunties and my grandma, and I could just see the way that things were different, you know. Um, but yeah, these words I think help me contextualize. Like, no, I am from here. But also looking at other Pacific Islanders and the ways that they're gender diverse, right, and all the words and all the roles, right, especially roles, right. Being queer wasn't just an identity; it was a role in your society, in your community, looking at the Fa'afafines, looking at the Mapu, looking at many of the Polynesian like families who have helped guide me and many of us today here in the Northwest, right? Um, and I want to shout out Utopia, Utopia United Territories of Pacific Alliance. They're the first place that I felt that I could bridge my culture and my sexuality together at once, because they were a queer Fa'afafine-led organization doing like pageant work, and they did cultural work. I'm like, oh my God, like we can exist. I mean, I don't have to just be quiet at the family party and just like be okay. I could just be myself. And so, yeah, I think it's this constant exploration of like words and language and expression and being. And I feel grateful to have other Telus here to like actually have someone to like share that with, to know that you're not alone. And I think that's a lot of like our experiences, fighting isolation, belonging, also violence too, right? I think seeing us together helps us know that we are stronger together and that we can move through it despite the hardships, but with more glitter, biodegradable glitter. Yeah.
Biba.
Yeah.
Govzawano, Sidus Mase. And I do love, I mean, Paraguay, I do love the way that, you know, Guma Gela and so many queer Chamorros today have just embraced and celebrated, you know, terms which were problematic and offensive. And, I just love that. Because even for me, I didn't grow up speaking much Chamorro, but once I did start to learn Chamorro, it was very clear that a lot of words, like a lot of curse words, a lot of profanity was very like homophobic. It was very like in many languages. It's and so it was just and so like I remember first hearing that word, but then when I heard artists, you know, and activists kind of embrace it and celebrate it, and then it was just it felt, you know, especially for me who has family members who are queer, it feels nice for me to be able to use that word in Chamorro. Because because when I speak in Chamorro and then all of the words have such negativity to them. Like, and for so long they were probably used with such negative intent too. So then the fact now that because of the work of so many to kind of free it where it could be something that has some joy to it, it's like it's really nice that I can use that even when I'm speaking in Chamorro. And it doesn't I don't, because yeah. And so thank you, Roddy, for bringing up sort of the language element to it, because it is so important to reclaiming symbols practices. But for those of us that teach the language too, if you can take those words and however they may have been used before, but if we can bring them out, put them in a more decolonized and open and liberated space. And Soleil, I don't know if you wanted, were you hoping that we would miss you? Are you doing that Chamorro thing, sitting in the very corner in the back of the classroom? It's okay. It's okay.
I'm just
Maulika.
waiting very patiently. I
Okay.
am the quiet one in the group
Okay,
sometimes,
Maulika.
majority of the time. Um, but yeah, it's funny, I was listening to Rowdy's story and I was like, oh, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. Growing up, I was very much a tomboy and everyone always, came back for me. And I grew up doing all the boy roles in my house. Like I did everything better than the boys in my family, you know. I was very proud of that. Um, but I was also, very much forced into playing the role of femininity um, in a way that was uncomfortable. And I grew up with my family deeply involved with the church. Um, and I was thinking about what you said earlier, Dr. Pinkett, about knowing someone who wasn't able to fully like, explore their queerness until they had to separate it from their traumas. And I feel very similar to my family. I grew up with a lot of queer folks in my family, but it was very hush hush. You acknowledge them, you respect them, but you don't really talk about that too much. And there is still this negative connotation, like yes, they're good people, but because they're queer, they're gay, it's taboo. And I never really understood that. But it also built up like unknown internal homophobia within like the context of being Catholic, and just being surrounded with those ideologies. And it wasn't until I moved out here to Washington where I was like, I felt finally safe to explore my queerness and my transness. And I didn't realize until recently that I had to, in a way, separate um, my queerness and my transness from my Chamorro identity. Um, and that's why I feel very grateful to Guma Gela, because when I met these beautiful people, I was like, oh, I can exist as my whole self, being trans and queer and very much Chamorro. And I think that's like at the core of who we are, is creating these safe places for our Mengyetlu to like question and explore, without the outside judgment that we grew up with. And it's hard to knowing how much of us like share like similar feelings and similar stories, growing up on the island and not feeling safe. Um, and I also feel for like those who are still on the island. I've never experienced being trans and queer on Guahan. It's only been out here. So I have a lot of questions, and I just experienced that I guess I don't really have. Yeah.
Oh, Sidus Masi for thank you so much for sharing. I think I, one of the things that struck me about what you shared is when you're talking about your family and how there was that it was there, but it was hush hush, it wasn't discussed. And one of the looking, remembering one of the things that I found was very important, looking through some of the work that Guma Gela has done, because there's been art, there was even musical performances, fashion, zines, all sorts of stuff. But one of the things that I really like appreciated in terms of the work that is unexpected. The work that is unexpected is when there was pieces on social media which honored elders and sort of for example, there was posts on Guma Gela's Instagram that honored Patrick Palomo, and there was posts that honored Defunta Malia Ramirez. And because one of the things that it always happens if people think that something is not inside their culture, then in their mind, taza haletnya. It has no roots. It is always appearing. It is not sustainable. It's coming, it's going, it's not a part of us. It's there, it's gone. And so one of the ways that you counter that is that you always remind people that it's been here. It's been part of this. And you show them that it's been here. You may have not seen it, you may have missed it, but it's always been here. And so I loved those posts because it had a way of reminding people this has always been here. Maybe people didn't want to see it. Maybe people didn't have the words for it. There might have been some unfortunate, tragic things that kept us from fully valuing it and respecting it. But I love the way that it put it out there in a very Chamorro way. And so I wanted to kind of hear about that because, one of the things for me who has interviewed, hundreds and hundreds of elders, and there was always kind of this thing, especially when I think back to some of the elders that I interviewed 25 years ago, there was always this thing where you would bump up against like talking about, people who might have been queer in the past, but there was no place for them in society. And so how do you talk about somebody who might have been gay or lesbian or trans in the early 1900s? But the family felt that they might have been. And then if I'm talking to somebody 20 years ago and they're talking about one of their favorite aunts, the words that they would use to describe them, but how do you honor somebody like that when they died a long time ago, but they were special to them, but they don't know any words to describe them, but they were just unique. They were unique and they were so different than everyone else, and that made them truly special. And so I just loved those posts about how that this is, because some people will say, oh, this is all new. It's all new, but it's like, oh, sure, it can be new, but it can also have deep roots. And so I wanted to hear any thoughts about that. Hear people who, have inspired you, people that you'd want to honor or stories like that. And Tino, por favor.
So we did that last year for Mes Chamorro. And I think one of the ideas was that we had collectively worked on some of the research, right, to figure out what are the words behind or to describe the experiences of queer and trans Chamorro people. And one of the things that I think we came up against is that a lot of the stories, a lot of the words didn't have sort of stories or origins, right? We don't know where they came from. We know who told us, and we can kind of validate that through community. We can validate that through storytelling. We can validate that through, right, whatever the means is. But having ourselves to restory a lot of those things, right, whether through an artistic piece that reflected our own identities, whether through doing sort of retelling stories that of imaginary ancestors, right, that we know existed in the past. That's also, one of the things, right, where you have elders who are either right, they don't say it, right, they'll never say it, but they'll be like, well, so and so is right. And I think that for the longest time, we didn't have sort of a term to gather around. And I think when we started to reclaim the word Gela, it was transformative. And when we heard the story of how it came to be, the story that Simon Malia told one of our co-founders, Rokin, we were really honored to hear that story of an ancestor who wasn't forgotten, right? And when we asked Uncle Pat about it, he even was saying that when he was younger, his uncle would call him Miguela Miguela, right? After whoever Miguel was, right, back then. That the word was used more commonly as Miguela before it got shortened to Gela, right? Yeah, just to answer your question, the process was a community effort. None of us we didn't get paid to do that. We just did it out of our hearts and our love for our community. And we did our best to get all the words, but I think there wasn't enough days or enough weeks in Mas Chamorro. So maybe we should do another one where we keep expanding the words and imagine new words, right? To think about how to describe our experiences. But I know Soleil participated in that, and I think Sahi also did. If you guys want to talk more about your pieces as well.
Oh, put for butt. If anyone wants to share, again, I'd love to hear more because I definitely enjoyed those posts, and I can put them up real fast while you're talking if you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, it was such an honor to be able. I drew a portrait of Sinan Malia, and when she passed, I didn't get the chance to meet her in person, but I've heard so much about her work, and I was really honored to read some of the articles that really honored her as a trans woman and used her correct pronouns. And because oftentimes after folks, especially trans folks, die and pass, um, their dead names or legal names are, like put into articles, or people don't use the right pronouns to honor them. And so we thought it was really important to honor our Manunka, especially our trans and queer Manunka, and be able to think about tying the words, right? And I really do believe that, like I mentioned earlier, and me and Tor talk about a lot about this, is when we're honoring the sacred, especially our elders, like it's also important to honor the land and honor the water, because where we come from is also our ancestor. And yeah, thinking about when we're thinking about our queerness and our transness, I think it's really tied, right, to nature and to thinking about these metaphors that exist within our land as well. If you wanted to talk more about that.
Yeah, we were thinking, even though we might not have like a recorded history of queer and trans people, um, I feel like just um yeah, like nature and the water, maybe even like the transitions of the moon, or like thinking of estuaries and places where things thrive in this in between. So maybe there's not necessarily like a recorded um like something recorded of our queerness and transness. We know that it exists because it is in nature and we are of nature. So it really, yeah, it's I think um there's a lot for us to go on, even if we don't have recorded history. But it is very beautiful how we are like reclaiming lots of yeah, all of the words that were used so derogatorily.
Yeah. And to add on to that, it makes me think a lot about when I came out to my mom as not only queer but non-binary. She said this in the context of like God and Catholicism, but I thought it was really also ancestral to me, where she said, God has always told me you were in the middle, and I didn't know what that meant until now. And so when we think about, right, like the transformation, for instance, like freshwater and saltwater, right, becoming an estuary, that's transness to us, right? That's transformation. Thinking about the needs of growing and taking root, and like the new trees, right? Like like just the roots that we are all interconnected to make me think of queerness, and thinking about like how ancient and sacred our existences are, and how we, when we feel like, for instance, for many of us, I'm sure, like thinking about feeling alone or isolated or not cared for or seen, right? Especially from our family or our parents, or, loved ones that we want to really be seen by in our queerness, our transness, and our wholeness. Um, I'm always reminded, and I feel like we practice this as Guma Gela and even in our partnership, it's like turn to the land and turn to the water, and remember that we can be held through that, and think of like the many transformations that exist when we do feel like we're alone.
Sidus Masi, Gaf Pogwano. Does does anyone would anyone like to Soleil put for butt?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to like what Sahi and Tor talking about. And we've, as a boomer, have talked about this a lot. But even though we don't have necessarily a lot of written history, about our ancestors. We are the living embodiments of their sacred love and their strength and their joy. And we are, the future ancestors, and we are living history. And that's something I keep very dear to me, especially within the work of Guma Gela, is, rewriting our stories, rewriting the narratives, because there's so many more stories out there that we still haven't heard. And we're trying to cultivate a place where we can be heard and seen more.
C'est doucement c'est. C'est doucement c'est. All right, now a general question for everyone, because art seems to have play such a big role. Now, who wants to talk about why art is important in this? Why is art, is it just that you're all artists? Is that why you're all in this together? Or is art does art serve a particular purpose in this? And so can we talk about why art is important in this larger movement for social change, for changing people's minds, for opening their minds, for cultural change? And so who has some comments on that? Because and so I've put links onto sort of the live streams for, and I'll share it real quickly here. I put a link up for fashion show. Hold on, where is that? Fashion show and fashion week in London, and then here is in the Wing Luke Museum, Guma Gela, part land, part sea, all ancestry. And so beautiful pieces here from Rowdy and from Sahi. And then I see Rokin is also here. Oh, I see Clay, a piece by Clay there. And so who wants to talk about sort of the importance of art in sort of not just for Guma Gela, but also just in sort of larger social movements as well?
I'm going to share a story that I think when I first met Roddy, I didn't really see myself as an artist. And I think when Rowdy, Roken, Sahi, Soleil, and me first met, I think we all were sitting with like what that actually meant. And I owe a lot of how I came into being as a queer Chamorro, as a Gela, right, to Rowdy and to everything that they have helped us plant and bloom in our gardens, right? Because I think without them, many of us would not have seen ourselves as that, right, as artists. And I always think about that as Roddy has always inspired such transformative thinking through art for us, and from the very beginning. And yeah, I don't know, as a segue, I guess, to handing it off to Roddy to talk more about that as well.
Rowdy, por favor.
Oh, Sana Maasi Tina for those words. Oh my gosh, I'm blushing now. You can't see it. Well, maybe now, but yeah. No, that's also another big question too. I think what really started for me was after graduating from college, I began to work at Wing Luke Museum, which is an Asian Pacific Islander museum in the Northwest. One of the only ones in the country that kind of looks at cultures, art, and history of Asian Pacific Islanders within an American context, right? And I think working there was one of the first places I was able to bring in all my identities, my Koreanness, my Chamorro-ness, my Filipino-ness, being like, oh, there's stories everywhere. Everyone has a story based on where they're from, based on their family, based on like who they love. And it made me question like, what does a Chamorro exhibit look like? People would ask me like, okay, what's that? What would you put in a room? I'm like, a Laddystone, a Sanahi, like what more can we have? And I think that's the question, like what more? And then I just saw how the museum's cultivate people to be like, no, we all have something to share. We all have a story to share. And it made me want to do that with people, with my communities, right? Because we don't have those spaces. There aren't any. There's only like one Pacific Islander museum in the continental US. You know, and all our Pacific stories are like in anthropological museums, natural history museums, really kind of told through a Western gaze. And so this museum encouraged like personal storytelling. And I also had a chance to like do exhibits too. And so in this, they're like, here, just bring people and talk about Pacific stories. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bring my friends, you know, I'm gonna bring people I know, because I know everyone is creative in their own way, but I think there's this permission that we need to have to make either permission for ourselves or from this like institution or like my college, right? To say I have something of knowledge or value, right? And so I love bringing everyone in and being like, hey, here's a wall, do whatever you want, here's money and just do and just make, you know, just whatever comes to you. And people made some beautiful stories. They're like, I'm gonna talk about my mother. I'm gonna talk about like my land here. I'm gonna talk about climate change. I'm gonna talk about, if you give us a chance to say something, we will say something, right? And I think another thing being in this like Islander API museum was that there wasn't a lot of like strong Pacific stories in there too. And so we were always seen as like the silent one. I know those conversations are happening now with NHPI month. Um, but I think also there's a sense of like, no, when I'm given the space, we can share, and each one of you have like amazing stories to share. And I think it was really cool to see everyone's transformation, right? I think of us as like Hema is just a shell, but like you imagine what it can be. And I think I love queer and transness because I think that's what we do to ourselves. We transform it to what we want, that's solid and protected. It reminds us of home. And I think for us in Guma Gela, using all these like Chamorro symbols and motifs to contextualize our life, I think helps me ground myself in kind of like a philosophical or metaphorical way too, because it's like we have to talk ourselves into the future, or else because we have to, because who else is going to do it for us? And if they do, they'll do it wrong. And we'll be mad and we'll complain and we'll protest. But then we could use all the energy into be like just telling our own stories, but also having infrastructure to do that, you know, to give people a chance to do that. We have I met so many artists on Guam who want to be artists, but they're doing it as a hobby, or it's like I just do it for my friends. But I'm like, you're doing it because you want to, and I think that's so amazing. And so, yeah. Yeah, so could you talk about some of your art pieces and what it meant for you too? Because I loved your pieces, and I love like just for me, art is just being fun. Yes, there's a lot of heaviness and there's a lot of importance in archiving our history, in like representation, in like creating space for new narratives to be told. But it's also, I think, there needs to be joy in it. I think our people experience so much hardships, so much sadness and heaviness. And I think a part of Gumigela is joyfulness, right? Because I think about the fiestas, I think about our chachas, I think about all the ways that we laugh, right? And I'm just like, how do we incorporate that into joy is resistance. Yes, joy is like our inherited right, you know, like, yeah, I think about that. So yeah, Sahi, would you want to share? I could keep going, but it was fun to create with you too. So being in the wing loop late at night, just trying to like tie bamboo things together and like painting walls. You know?
Maybe you could keep going. That's
Oh
okay.
yeah, tying made this beautiful like flower ceiling. Like we just had to tie all these silk flowers to the ceiling, and yeah, it was just you're in your flower like era at that time.
Yeah, I feel like one, I also want to give you like Agadesi Rowdy because you definitely were one of the first queer Chamorro people that I met that told me that my work was like art and like that I was worthy of being in a museum. And I had not seen myself as an artist at that point, you know, or felt worthy to be in a space that other people could see my art. And so your invitation like is so important. I just want to give you like, you know, your Tinalik for that. You've definitely inspired so many of us and continue to. Not only you also taught me so much about what it meant to like anything I created was Chamorro. So I felt like I was always like I feel like for many of us, right, especially as queer and Chamorro, queer and trans Chamorro people, it's like, oh, am I Chamorro enough? And I feel like you definitely encouraged me and so many others to remind us, like, yeah, anything we touch and create is inherently like from us and is Chamoru. And yeah, I feel like in the exhibits that we created, I focused specifically on our inner children, so I called it inner like Inida Neni, but inner Neni. Probably not the best but tried to be punny. But I did portraits of every artist that contributed to that exhibit as their child self, and they got to send me a photo of them as nennies, whatever, time frame that was of their younger self. And it felt like such a ritual and a prayer to be able to like give love to these younger selves of the artists that we're creating and draw their portraits. And I often do that, and I'm called to like draw portraits of people for fundraisers or for people that have passed. And I was like, oh, like it's such a gift, right? To be able to draw the portraits of these Manyetlu as younger people, being able to give them that love and for them to see themselves in this exhibit as young people too. Um, and we've also been doing a lot of work of like inner nanny work too. And I don't know if you want to talk about one of our workshops that we're gonna do.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we're soon going to lead a workshop to make these postcards with, like our inner, maybe like an altar or just an homage to our inner, our younger selves, or for folks to make an homage to their younger selves. And you can write a little love note to your younger self and we can mail it to you. Just so that you can have that message from, somebody who has survived something, or who, like we are all surviving something, especially under capitalism. Um, and so, yeah, I think that would be a really sweet workshop for folks to go to. Yeah, that was such a sweet idea that you had. Always thinking of our nanny selves.
Yeah, they're called nanny postcards. So we invite you to make your own. Get a picture of yourself and make it, gift pocket.
Everything that
Everything.
everything that nanny could
Yeah.
have dreamed of.
Oh, go for Zahuan now. Oh, I day. Sidus Mossy is we are at 1 o'clock. Okay, so we are in sort of our closing. What is that? It is the 2 minute warning for the end of the Lasodzu. And so Hungen, and now I want to give everyone neni podcast Hungen. And so I want to give everyone a chance, though, if you have some closing thoughts that you want to share, though. And so the closing thoughts can be of any nature. It could be something about Guma Gela. It could be something about your own work. It could be just an inspirational message. It could be a shout out, right? If you want to do like a shout out and say like, hey, like they used to do on the radio on Guam. Hey, it's my nana's birthday. Can you say happy birthday to Maria Cruz? It's her 76th birthday. You could do one of those if you wanted to. But let's just go around. If you have anything final that you would like to share before we close this episode of Fanachu, por favor, song and ha. And so we can go reverse order. And so I think that would be Sole, who is holding a nanny, would go first.
Say hi. My goddaughter, my sister's daughter. Hi.
Nanny.
She's like, there's so many faces, I don't know where to look. Yeah, big Cinema Aussie to you, Dr. Miguel and Dr. Sarina, for having us and allowing us to share our stories. Definitely dreaming of more to come. One thing that we have to look out is we will be doing an art fundraiser very soon. We've been collecting art from different artists, and we're gonna be doing a fundraiser to raise money for the typhoon relief. And we will be posting more information about that on our Instagram very soon. So just so folks know, I'm very distracted right now.
Oh, Maulika. I know
Yeah.
that feeling. I had to give a talk this weekend holding one of my children that jumped up on stage and insisted I hold him in my arms. All right, si Zeus Masi Solen, we're gonna move now to Tina Hungan who comprendi. Song and Mas neni Hungan song and Mas. Song and ena minaga het mo potgun ena minaga het mo song and now. Hungan. Pass it off now to Tino, put for what.
I think I really liked what Sahi shared about Roddy teaching us that anything we do, anything we touch, right, is a Chamorro thing. And I think, you know, you're talking about like roots, right? And I like to think about there's this one Native Hawaiian feminist who talks about like the movement of culture and the transformation of culture over time. And no matter how far on the banyan tree the leaf is, right, there are always roots still connected back to the ground. And I think thinking about that as we move forward as a people is really important, and really what I think queer and trans Chamorro people really have to offer to our self-determination movement, to thinking about what does a decolonial future look like, imagining futures beyond the current reality. Because we're doing that work every single day in what we do as artists and as Gela. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to share. That's my final words and final thoughts.
Sidus Martin. And then Rowdy, Colistro, how go pot go bunting.
Sanamasi again for everyone here, for all those listening. Thank you so much for sharing space with us today. I think the only thing also thank you again for your words on saying how I helped guided you. I think for me, being in a museum, seeing and being an educator, I was like, no, I have an opportunity to share this. I want to share it with as many people as possible, and so hopefully we'll continue to share it and have this Guma grow more. But I think the thing I want to leave with is thinking about Chamorro-ness and queerness. The ways I think we do this sometimes in Guma Gela is we think about Chamorro drag names. And I just want to share a couple of more drag names as my ending, because I just think it's kind of fun. So we have Shauna Day. We have JD Crotch. And we have Atan Barbara. I love Atan Barbara. Tino came up with Pesca Thought, which I thought was really, really cool. And I tried to do one for Malago Mumu, but I couldn't find one. So her English name is Joanna Fight. So yeah, so these are some ways that we continue to be playful and try to be playful in language as we also grow in our language capabilities too. Meowlica. I saw Meowlica. I know Sumahi did Meowlica too. So.
Oh yeah. Or Tautau Mona.
I love Tata Mona. Yeah. Yeah, it could be so many. And then it becomes a different, like energy to bring. So yeah.
Oh, si Gof Zaho no. Oh, si Zeus Masi. Gof Zaho no. Hungan. Hoy. All right. Hungan, now I'm gonna pass it off to Sahian Tor Hungan. Hungan, you're like the Voltron square there. You're like your powers combined. Hungan.
Sanamasi, everyone, for holding space for us, and Sanamasi Raldi for just bringing so much unseriousness and laughter and seriousness. Obviously, it's serious, to all of this. And I think the only thing I would want to add is that there is no separation between queerness and transness, Chamorro-ness and art. I think that it exists, like we all exist in that space together, and that is it's for a reason, for sure. And like everyone had said, it is because we've had to learn to heal. We've had to, like heal to be able to accept ourselves and continue to like be brave and stand up in a world that just doesn't want us. And we want to bring other people into the same world that we see. So we're constantly trying to heal and show everyone that, like this is a world that we want to have. So I think yeah, there's no separation between it all. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I think I guess I want to just give gratitude as well to all of you and thank you for having us on this podcast and inviting us. Dr. Sarina and Dr. Bigbakwa, and I just wanted to give affirmations to our Manyetlu out there that are listening or maybe, feeling that they need that connection. I just want to say in Gofli Ihao, in Guaidzahao, like we see you, we love you, and we're here. And Guma Gela exists because we've always existed. And if you want to be connected to us, please reach out. Yeah, come reach out. A lot of us right now are based in Seattle, but we do have chapters in Guahan, and we hope to continue to, keep building across everywhere, because we want us to be connected and we want to be connected to you. So yeah, Hugwaizahamzu, Ngwaizahamzu.
Sidus Masi. And Dr. Sarina, any final thoughts before we close this? And Sidus Masi to you for reaching out and suggesting this as an episode.
Yes, namaste, Dr. Bavakwa, for your enthusiastic welcoming of Guma Gela. It was such an honor to find this space to highlight all this extraordinary work. And I just want to share deep bows of gratitude and awe to these wonderful artist activists who are the change that we want to see in the world. And this embodiment of as ancestral futurism has provided so much spiritual healing to my younger self, and also gives me so much hope for the future as well. I've done a lot of stuff for mental health for Cutie BIPOC really struggling with, finding their way in the world and not feeling like they belong, and doing so much suicide prevention and postvention, which makes me feel so grateful that you are really centering joy and justice. And this is life-changing and life-saving work. So thank you for all you do. And I hope that people continue to uplift and support you in every which way. And I'll just also wish a happy intergalactic birthday to my cousin Patrick Sablon, who passed on. And it's a great way to kind of honor all of this amazing work that we're all doing. So, Sainamase, everyone. It's just such an honor to be in community with all of you, especially during these horrific social political times.
Again. And don't forget that you can find, I shared it earlier and I put the link on the live stream. You can find Guma Gela on Instagram. You can message them to get more information on them. And then I did see a message that there's a WhatsApp community as well for Guma Gela that you can join. And remember, how Chamorro are you unless you are in way too many WhatsApp groups? Can you count yourself amongst the clans and the tribes of the Chamorro unless you are fending off WhatsApp invites left and right? I think not. I think not. At a certain point, our obituaries will just say familian WhatsApp, familian WhatsApp, familian WhatsApp. And so, but yes, so please follow them. I'll put it, I'll share it again because the Instagram page has so many good resources. It's got music, it's got art. It's fun. It's so much fun. And so please follow them if you aren't already following them. Again. And this was the one that I was looking for, Hungan, with the story of Sainan Gela, Hungan. And Sidus Mase nu todos hamzu para ifinaton minzu para este podcast y competition tapagu hu agradece hamzu todos put ibidan mimidzu itsetso mimidzu hungen hutungunay na gonna be a makadesti lo sen balids and preciso guaguen loqui esti. Piot para todo y Samoruta, para todo y tautauta, y mangela lo azu y timangela loqui na sen preciso esti itsetsu mitsu. Este paugu I Fanachu este episode Fanachu. Para hamzu ni manega mane ekungok si dus masi ajos. Esta ki manal.